So Tucker Carlson goes to Moscow to interview Putin. And again, this is this Red Caesar idea. On the right, there's this idea that Putin kind of represents the kind of strong man we need to come and save us from the libtards. You know, he's for the religion, and he's for ethnic unity, and he's for bigotry and hating Jews and putting Muslims in. He's everything, you know, we want to see that, and they see some of that in Putin, because Putin is a very, very smart guy who plays into their desires. He knows what we're thinking here. He's got the internet just like we do, and he knows what they're thinking. He just says what you want to hear. Now, Tucker is the first American journalist. I want to set this up because I want to show you how this information crisis that we're in puts a fog all over everything. Tucker is the first American journalist to interview Putin since the Ukraine invasion, and Tucker says no one else has tried, but that's just not true. The Russians have said, yes, people have asked us, but we see no reason to communicate with these people because they hate us, but Tucker is different. Now, there's a reason. Here are some of the things, a little montage of some of the things that Tucker has said about Putin.
Hard to see why he's a threat to us. I don't think Putin is comparable to Hitler.
We should probably take the side of Russia if we have to choose between Russia and Ukraine.
It might be worth asking yourself, since it is getting pretty serious, what is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Does he eat dogs? These are fair questions, and the answer to all of them is no. Vladimir Putin didn't do any of that.
So what's distorting about that, and I've talked about the fact that I think Tucker has gone a little bit rogue, and what's distorting about that is Putin doesn't threaten to get you fired for disagreeing with him. He kills the people in his country who disagree with him, and sometimes he kills them even once they've left the country. He poisoned that guy Alexander Litvinenko with plutonium, and others. You know, that guy rebelled against him. Yevgeny Prigozhin fell out of the sky when his wing suddenly fell off his plane. Alexei Navalny is an opposition guy. He tried to poison him, and now he's put him in prison. So to say that he doesn't do these things to us, right? I understand that the regime here has censored us and silenced us and fired us and got HR departments to fire us for saying things that are untoward, like men can't become women, things that are true, and YouTube takes you off the air if you say things that are true. I get all that. But Putin is doing that, and so if a Putin were here, he would be doing it even worse. And remember, once they start to come after people, they'll get to you eventually. It doesn't really matter what side you're on in the long run. So Tucker's wrong about that. But who did that montage? Who made that montage that I just showed you? Erin Burnett of CNN. I took it from one of her shows. Now here's Erin Burnett of CNN interviewing Ukraine's Zelensky. Listen to this for a minute. Cut to.
As a human being, so many people look up to you. They rely on you. No one can imagine how hard that is. Do you do anything for yourself? Are you ever able to take a minute to read or to listen to music or something to sort of give yourself that a moment?
I have such moments, important, to be in silence, to be alone. Alone, how can I be alone? Alone, I can be with music.
I don't know, if you're not watching, just listening, the look on Erin Burnett's face, a woman looks at me like that, and I'm thinking, I'm getting lucky tonight. That was an embarrassing thing. So now you're looking at that. That's the regime press. That represents pretty much the coverage of the Ukraine war that we have gotten from the regime press, which is most of the press. I mean, Tucker is the outlier to this. So Tucker is saying one thing that is clearly untrue about Putin, and they're giving us that garbage, and we've sent $100 billion, not just the military aid, but in all the aid. It's over $100 billion now asking for $60 billion more. And you've got to be looking at that and thinking, I'm being played. I am being played for my money. We're trillions, $30 trillion in debt. We've got people storming, invading our country. How come we can't stop the invasion of our country at the southern border? And I got to spend money stopping the invasion on you're being lied to. You are being lied to by the regime. And so somebody who's against the regime comes across as very well. But remember, again, Tucker, who I used to like a lot more than I like him right now, he had Andrew Tate on and let Tate just sit there and lie about his abuse and use of women. He let Trump rumble on for an hour without asking him one challenging question. And Absolutely everybody sucks completely. That is the problem we're facing. We do not have anybody we can trust. So here he goes to the Kremlin, and God love him. But by the time they finished, the EU was threatening to ban his travel. There was a story going around that Zelensky had put him on a kill list. That was a false story. Some organization there put him on a quote-unquote kill list, meaning people who don't like us, but that there was no threat to him like that. But they're just saying, oh, he's committing treason. He's doing his job. This is his job. He should be there. He's doing the right thing to go if he can get that interview. And by the way, it got something. It's a 2.5-hour interview, which I watched every second of it. He got like 100 million views. That is a good thing. The fact that there is now a challenging media to the regime media is a good thing. But that doesn't mean that they're telling you the truth either. So here's the start of this interview. He sits down with them and he says, why did we go into Ukraine? This is cut 20.
Let's look where our relationship with Ukraine started from. Where did Ukraine come from? The Russian state started gathering itself as a centralized statehood, and it is considered to be the year of the establishment of the Russian state in 862, when the townspeople of Novgorod invited a Varangian prince, Rurik, from Scandinavia to reign. In 1862, Russia celebrated the 1000th anniversary of its statehood. And in Novgorod, there is a memorial dedicated to the 1000th anniversary of the country.
I'm sorry, what was the question again? Oh, yeah, it was, why did you invade Ukraine? This goes on for 30 to 40 minutes. I mean, it is insane. He tells the entire history. It's like, it's like, gather around me, children, and tell the story. And Tucker says, I thought for a minute he was filibustering me. Oh, really? Come on. Tucker looked to me like a mouse caught in the mesmerizing glare of a cobra. Remember, this is a guy who has buzzsawed through 3 U.S. presidents. Remember George W. Bush? I looked into his eyes and I saw his soul. Here, I can work with him. I saw his soul. And remember Obama, tell Vlad, once I'm reelected, I won't have to worry about politics and I'll be able to pull all those naughty missiles out of your way. And then Trump saying, oh, Putin was nice to me, so now I love Putin. I mean, this guy goes through people. He is a canny, KGB-trained thug. He's a gangster. And yes, when he turns around and he says, you people are corrupt, you're teaching perverse sexuality to children, you arrest your political enemies on January 6th. Absolutely, absolutely. But Putin kills his enemies. He set terrorist explosions in Russian neighborhoods so he could coax the people. He killed like 100 people so he could coax the people into war in Chechnya. This guy is not Red Caesar. This guy is a problem. Now, here's what got me. Afterward, Tucker gave a sort of interview to himself, reacting to it. And he's just come away from, again, it's a big story. And he talks about his impressions. And he says, just to be clear, he says, I'm still forming my impressions. It's going to take me a year before I figure out what I just heard. And here was the part that struck me. This is cut 22.
The West rejected Russia. And maybe, I'm not even taking sides in this. Maybe they were good reasons. I don't know what they would be. But in case the West was determined not to be allied with Russia, that's very obvious. That's the whole point of NATO, I guess, is to contain Russia. And Putin is wounded by this. He's very upset about it. His eyes flashed when we talked about that, as we did, for probably over an hour. He didn't have a coherent theory that he was willing to tell me anyway as to why that is. Russia's not an expansionist power. Sorry. You're not supposed to say that because all the Tory Newlands and all the liars and ideologues who run the State Department want to make him into this, Hitler, Imperial Japan. But the truth is that that's just false.
So that's very fractured history. Okay? I mean, that is very strange history. It worries me because the U.S. did try to ally itself with Russia and to manage the fall of the Soviet Union at the start, when Yeltsin took over and was kind of trying to coax the former Soviet Union into democracy. But Yeltsin was a drunk and he was an incompetent and he couldn't get it done. And at the same time, what was happening was this, because socialism is an inherently corrupt system. Socialism is inherently corrupt. It has good intentions, obviously, to bring about some kind of equality and raise us above mere filthy lucre and all. I get it. But still, it's inherently corrupt because it pools all the money that other people create with the government. And what's going to happen then? Suddenly the government is going to vaporize and go away and all the money will be everybody's. But no, of course not. The government is just a bunch of people who love power. They love money. Now they've got money and power. They're never giving it up. They're never giving it up. They don't have to make it. They're just taking it from you. So it is an absolute slave system. When the Soviet Union fell, all that money was pooled essentially in the state. So all the businesses were owned by the state and all the profit that they made and whatever money they got and whatever productivity they had, and they started auctioning those things off. Now, the way they ran the auctions was incredibly corrupt, and they made it so that only the people that they wanted to could buy up these companies and buy up the money and get the money that they wanted. And of course, the gangsters, the mafia at the same time, who had been suppressed by a powerful government, because that's one of the benefits of tyranny, is it will suppress crime because the criminals just get killed. Now the mafia started rising up again, and they started killing people to get them out of the way so they could buy some of it, or they worked for the oligarchs who would buy the stuff up. And this basically became a gangsterocracy, a crookocracy, let's call it that. Now, who takes over this? This is during the 80s and 90s, right? So who takes over a government, a country that's run by crooks, is the biggest crook. The Godfather takes it over. And that's basically who Putin is. Now, a lot of times people say it's a gangsterocracy, and there's some truth to that in the sense that these mafiosi, it's not like the mafia runs the country. That would be false. But the mafia is used by the people who run the country to kill people who get in their way, to intimidate people, to go over into Ukraine and kill people. And this idea that Putin is somehow not expansionist is... Tucker's right. See, this is the thing. Tucker's right about the State Department. The State Department is filled with very, very intelligent, stupid people. I've talked to a lot of them. They're amazing. If you want to talk literature with them, if you want to talk history with them, if you want to talk public policy with them, they just know everything, and their ideas are as dumb as wood. It's amazing. It's because they're stuck in this room with a bunch of people exactly like themselves. They all have the same opinion. I once said to one of them, a guy raking his leaves in a suburb of Rochester, New York, knew the communist was bad before you did. And his eyes went blank. He just absolutely went blank. But the thing is, that doesn't mean make Putin right. Putin has said he's compared himself to Peter the Great, who went into Sweden. And Putin said, well, he wasn't invading Sweden, he was just returning. And that's essentially what he's saying about Ukraine. It's ours, we're going to take it back, whether Ukraine wants to give it back or not. And whether Ukraine is corrupt, whether there are Nazis there, whether we like them, all that stuff, it's still wrong to invade their country. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying we have to spend $1 billion, for Zelensky. I'm just saying that still makes Putin a bad actor. And what the people on the right says, well, he's not doing drag queen story hour. And my question is this: if we hate Joe Biden because his regime tries to rig elections and censor free speech, how is a former KGB agent whose elections are completely fraudulent and who murders dissenting journalists and jails dissenters and rigs elections himself so they don't even exist, how is he the solution? How does that, how childish is it to not be able to see that there are enough asses in the world that everybody can have his head up one of them? They don't have to be any good people. Right? The good people have to be us, because the rest of these people want power, they want money, they're in positions of power, they want fame, all these things that are happening at a different level than our ordinary lives. Do you want a tyrant who talks like you? Is that the idea? Is that the whole idea? All he has to do is say, oh, I believe in the Orthodox Church. He believes in the Orthodox Church like I believe in, like I'm a Muslim. He doesn't believe it. And that's another thing, by the way. Think about it for a minute, that if an Islamists were saying the things that Putin is saying. Oh, you people are corrupt and you have sexually corruption and you arrest your political enemies. Would you then be saying, oh, good, I'll follow him? No, of course not, because you'd know what he believes. And you know what this guy believes too. He believes in Putin. He believes in iron-fisted rule. He believes on having his boot on the neck of his opponents. Here's the thing. In this crisis, in this information crisis, and the crisis is a naturally caused one. We invented the internet. The internet is a good thing, but all this flood of information coming in, we cannot tell the good from the bad, and because the regime is failing, because the American system that we've had for the last 70, 80 years is failing, those people are incompetent and they're lying all the time. And so this flood of information, it's impossible to pick out the good from the bad. If you create a mental system where every election you lose is stolen, and Taylor Swift is a hologram being controlled by George Soros, but Putin is a wonderful guy, and every word that falls from his mouth is a golden droplet of truth. There is no way for information to get to you at all that will help you to change your mind and align your thoughts with reality. Everybody, absolutely everybody, sucks completely in a moment like this because the money's on the table, the country, the systems of the country are in a shambles. Everybody wants a piece of that action, just like when the Soviet Union fell. It's not that bad, but it's close. It's getting there. Everybody wants a piece, and everybody's out for himself. And we have to develop trustworthy information outlets like us. And also in your own brain, you have to develop trustworthy information outlets that say, okay, this guy is bad, but is this guy good as well? So that our anger and our prejudice and our idolatry doesn't get in the way of our common sense. Because, once again, absolutely everybody sucks completely. I love that guy. If you want more, like and subscribe, and don't forget to subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.